Today, let's learn to handstand balance on a straight bar or rail. Exactly the same as the floor, we're better off starting close-ish to the wall and use that for support to learn both the underbalance and the overbalance. Now, obviously, most people's goal is going to be able to kick up straight to a freestanding handstand and just hold that for time or do things on here, whether it's press or handstand push up or things like that. But initially, like the floor, we're better off using the wall support to learn how to control both underbalance and overbalance. So that's the two directions we can fall in when doing a handstand. So my underbalance is this way, coming back to my feet. My overbalance is going over to the wall. So now I'm touching the wall because I'm leaning this direction. So I'm overbalanced to the wall. So if I can control both the overbalance and the underbalance, my window of balance gets bigger and bigger. So the handstand balance that's happening here is very similar on the bar and on the floor. So I can go in overbalance in that direction, I can go in underbalance. Now watch for the subtle changes or the subtle rebalancing that I'm doing on the floor compared to what I'm doing on the rail. It's very similar, but what you'll notice is it looks way more aggressive on the bar. Now the reason for that is base of support is actually much smaller now. So I'm in this position, so I only have this width compared to this when I'm on the floor. So I can rock into my fingers, where on the bar, I have to do this type of movement. So it's more like I'm pulling myself around or holding onto the bar and pulling back in the opposite direction to get that overbalance, rebalance, to control that overbalance. For the underbalance, you'll notice the arms are bending a little bit more and my shoulders are coming forwards and the rest of the body is compensating a little bit. So it's good to have a bit of an understanding, but the main thing we need to focus on is the two drills that are going to strengthen both the overbalance and the underbalance. So for the overbalance, we're going to use the back to wall drill. I'm going to take the rail a little bit closer. For the kick up, I'm going to have the shoulders directly on top of the hands and I'm going to be looking down either to the rail or to the floor, but I'm going to fix that focal point. Then I'm going to kick on top of the shoulders till I touch the wall. Squeeze the legs together, point the toes, make the body nice and long, one segment, and then I'm going to push up and away as I'm turning my hands. So what I'm doing is I'm doing that type of movement. So it's like when I'm in this handstand position, I push the fingers into the floor. Here I push like this. At the same time, I'm reaching up and away with the feet. And as long as I have a good connection between the hands and the feet should come off the wall. So same again, holding onto the bar, shoulders on top of the hands, strong focal point, kick, hips on top of shoulders, feet on top of hips, looking down towards the floor, keeping all that set up exactly the same. I'm going to push up and away with the feet while I just twist the bar a little bit away from me. Notice I came away, then I go back to the wall again. So I'm just going to practice coming off and back onto the wall again. So for repetitions. I can play with and fine tune this distance to find a comfortable position where I've got enough control, enough time to play with before I fall backwards into an underbalance. Because if I'm super close to the wall like this, it doesn't give me any time. So I pull off the wall a little bit, I'm just going to fall down to my feet. So having a little bit of distance so I can now play with between the hands here and the feet here is going to be a bit easier. But if I go to an extreme like this, it's going to need a really big pull, which tends to take me in that direction, which is a bit harder to control because then I'm going like this. Well, I want to be going like this, up to handstand. Once I've built that control for repetitions, I can then go into some holds. So exactly the same, hands, shoulders on top, strong focal point, kick on top of the hands, on top of the shoulders, reach up and away as I slightly twist the bar, get the heels to come off, and then I look at trying to hold there. Now I'm keeping a little bit of tension on my hands as I do this. So I'm keeping the accelerator on just a little bit because ideally you're just going to be hanging out slightly in the overbalance. Because remember, with the back to wall version, we're strengthening that overbalance control. If I start getting too close to the wall, I'm just going to do this a little bit harder, reach up a little bit harder, and I should pull back without touching the wall. And that way I'm beginning to get some really good control and time in the overbalance. Next we have the other side of the handstand, so the underbalance control. Now the easiest way to learn this from a technique point of view is chest to wall. But the same when learning the floor handstand is that it's pretty scary to start with because you could backsplat in that direction. So having someone here might be needed if you don't have the confidence to cartwheel out of the position. Now there is a different method and I'll show you that in a second, but first let's just go through the technique. So I'm going to have the bar a little bit further away to create a bit more space. I'm going to get into a chest wall position. Now when I get into a chest wall position, I have a couple of options. I could start on the floor, climb onto the bar, or if I've got the control and the space, I could cartwheel up into it. So I'm going to stick this leg up around the outside, walk on top. So now I'm hanging out in my underbalance. I'm leaning back towards my toes. Now I'm going to take my shoulders forwards, my toes are going to slide down to the point where the toes start to come off, and then I'm going to push back up to the wall again. Now I might start to bend the arms a little bit as well, because this is a little bit more of a muscle technique compared to the other version. But the idea is I'm starting to build that control of pulling my body off the wall and then up to handstand. But I'm being careful not to do this in that direction. So just enough back up, just enough back up. And then as my confidence and control improves, instead of just doing this, I'm going to try and do this. So exactly the same technique, but pulling a little bit further and then pushing up to a handstand hold with control before going back to the wall. So notice I'm staying there a little bit bent arms and then pushing back. Now if I do start to go a little bit too far this way, I now know the control to pull back from the overbalance, because that's the back to wall version we just done. And then I can just keep fine tuning that until I start to get some better holds in that underbalance. And because that one is a little bit trickier, what I recommend you do is just build some capacity there, be able to come off the wall into handstand, but then quite quickly turn back to wall, but create a bit more space away from the wall. And then you can start to play with both the overbalance and the underbalance at the same time, because we now know the technique, so it's just actually practicing the thing. So you could either start with feet together on the wall, or you could just step off the wall into your handstand and then try to play with both the overbalance and the underbalance. So I could go here, legs together, pull from the wall, and then I play with the overbalance, take it a little bit too far. Now I'm having to play with the underbalance and back to the wall, and vice versa. So I'm trying to really build some play in going in this direction and this direction, but I'm not falling down. It's like I'm flirting with the edge of my balance and pulling it back again. So it might look a little bit messy, and most people's line is not going to look so clean, not so straight on a bar, especially if they're bending their arms using a bit more muscle, because when we do that, it closes the shoulder a little bit and will result in a little bit more of a banana position. But I would just go with that. Once you build time control and you can stack a little bit cleaner, you can get more of a straight line in the handstand on the bar. But initially when you're learning, I'd let the body banana a bit, it's going to be much easier. And then as soon as you feel ready and you've got enough control, I'd start playing with doing it in the middle of the room. Now, if you're working on a bar handstand, then you've already got a freestanding handstand, I'm guessing. So you should already know how to bail out of a handstand. But it might be worth just practicing different directions, and also training in an area where you have enough space to fall in both directions. But exactly the same setup, hands, shoulders on top of the hands, strong focal point, do a little kick, come back down, make sure that feels okay, bit higher, see if you can start to find your balance. Think you're going up to handstands, not over. Slightly underbalanced is normally a good way to do it. So you might need to bend the arms slightly. There's one there, and I can hold it, practicing that overbalance, underbalance, and if I do go over, I step out. So there's a lot more sort of play going like this into handstand instead of this. And then if you already have some strength, control, experience in things like press handstands, quota handstands, handstand push-ups, you can start to explore those same movements on the bar. Let me know if you have any questions on this one down in the comments. If you're after coaching, check out my website or my app. Links are down in the description. Thumbs up and subscribe would be appreciated. I'll speak to you in the next one. Thanks, guys.